Martha Collins pushed her cleaning cart down the long hallway of Zenith Research Station. The wheels squeaked softly on the metal floor. It was 3 in the morning, and the station was quiet. Most people were sleeping in their rooms. Martha had been working the night shift for 3 years now. She cleaned floors, emptied trash cans, and wiped down tables while everyone else slept. The pay was not great, but it was honest work. At 62 years old, Martha was glad to have any job at all. The research station floated in space above a small planet. It was home to scientists and refugees from many different worlds. After the Great War ended 10 years ago, different alien species started working together. The station was proof that peace was possible. Martha knew every corner of the station. She had cleaned every room, every hallway, and every office. The scientists were usually nice to her. They would nod and say hello when they saw her during the day. Some even remembered her name. Tonight felt different, though. Martha could not explain why, but something seemed off. The air felt heavy, like before a storm. She had learned to trust her feelings over the years. They had kept her safe more than once. She turned the corner toward the restricted wing. This was where the scientists did their most important work. Martha was allowed to clean here, but only certain areas. The security doors were thick and had big warning signs on them. Martha stopped pushing her cart. She heard something strange coming from behind one of the sealed doors. It sounded like an animal in pain. The sound was soft but clear in the quiet hallway. She listened carefully. There it was again, a low whimper, sad and lonely. It reminded her of the stray dogs she used to help back on Earth. Before her husband died, they had a small farm. She always took care of hurt animals that wandered onto their land. Martha looked around. The hallway was empty. The security cameras were pointed away from where she stood. She knew their patterns after 3 years of working here. She pulled out her keycard. As head custodian, she had access to most areas of the station. The card was supposed to be used only for cleaning, but Martha had never been one to follow rules when someone needed help. The door opened with a soft hiss. Cool air flowed out, carrying a strange smell. It was not bad, just different, like metal and something else she could not name. Martha stepped inside, pulling her cart with her. The room was darker than the hallway. Emergency lights cast red shadows on the walls. She could see several large containers along the walls. They looked like the animal cages she had seen at the zoo, but much bigger. The whimpering sound came again. It was coming from the far end of the room. Martha walked toward it, her footsteps echoing softly. What she saw took her breath away. In the largest container sat a creature unlike anything she had ever seen. It looked like the dragons from old fairy tales, but real. The creature was about the size of a horse, with smooth scales that changed color in the dim light. Sometimes they looked purple, sometimes silver. The creature had wings folded against its body. Its long neck was curved down toward the floor. One of its legs was wrapped in white bandages. The bandages were dirty and looked like they had not been changed in days. A metal plate on the container read, Specimen Z7, Unknown Origin. Below that, in smaller letters, it said, Captured Outer Rim Sector. Status, Under Study. Martha felt her heart break. The creature was chained to the floor with thick metal chains. It could barely move. Worse, she could see intelligence in its large, dark eyes. This was not just an animal. This was a thinking, feeling being. The creature looked up at Martha. Their eyes met, and Martha saw something she recognized. The same look she had seen in the eyes of every hurt animal she had ever helped. Fear, pain, and a tiny bit of hope. Martha had always been a practical woman. She knew this could get her in serious trouble. She could lose her job, or worse. But looking at this beautiful, suffering creature, She knew she could not walk away. She opened her cart and pulled out a clean cloth and a bottle of water. She had some antibiotics in her first aid kit. Her husband had been diabetic, and she still carried medical supplies out of habit. Moving slowly, Martha approached the container. The creature watched her, but did not try to move away. It seemed to understand that she meant no harm. "Hello there," Martha said softly. "My name is Martha. I am not going to hurt you." The creature tilted its head, as if listening carefully to her words. Martha found the container's access panel and used her keycard to open it. The creature could have attacked her then, but it stayed still. It seemed as surprised by her kindness as she was by its gentleness. Martha knelt down beside the creature. Up close, she could see that its scales were beautiful, like pieces of colored glass. But she could also see cuts and bruises on its skin. The bandages on its leg were too tight and dirty. "Let me help you," Martha whispered. She began to carefully clean the creature's wounds with her cloth and water. The creature made a soft sound, like a cat purring. Martha worked for an hour, cleaning and treating the creature's injuries as best she could. She gave it some of the sandwich she had brought for her dinner. The creature ate it carefully, its eyes never leaving Martha's face. When Martha was finished, she sat back on her heels. The creature looked much better. Its eyes were brighter, and it seemed more comfortable. Martha was about to leave when something amazing happened. The creature spoke. "Human," it said in a voice like wind through trees. "Why do you show mercy to one such as I?" Martha nearly fell over in surprise. The creature could talk. It spoke perfect Galactic Standard, the common language used throughout the station. "Because you needed help," Martha said simply, "and everyone deserves kindness." The creature stared at her for a long moment. Then slowly it bowed its great head. "I am called Lirelei," the creature said, "and I will not forget your kindness, Martha of the humans." Martha could not stop thinking about Lirelei. 3 days had passed since their first meeting, but the dragon's words kept playing in her mind. She had helped many injured animals before, but none had ever thanked her with such dignity. Her regular cleaning rounds, Martha found herself hurrying through her other tasks. She wanted to get back to the restricted wing as soon as possible. She worried about Lirelei being alone and in pain. On her 4th visit, Martha brought more than just her cleaning supplies. She had spent her own money at the station's food market. Real meat was expensive, but Martha remembered how carefully Lirelei had eaten her sandwich. The dragon deserved better than leftover human food. The restricted wing was quiet as always. Martha used her keycard and slipped inside. Lirelei was awake, watching the door as if she had been waiting. "You came back," Lirelei said. Her voice sounded surprised. "Of course I did," Martha replied. She opened the container and pulled out a package of fresh meat. "I brought you something better to eat." Lirelei's eyes widened. "You spent your own money on food for me?" Martha nodded. "Everyone deserves a good meal." As Lirelei ate, Martha cleaned her wounds again. The dragon's injuries were healing well, but the chains were causing new problems. The metal was rubbing against her scales, leaving raw spots. Martha had brought something for that too. She pulled out strips of soft cloth from her cart. Carefully, she wrapped them around the chains where they touched Lirelei's skin. "This should help," Martha said. "The chains will not hurt so much now." Lirelei watched Martha work with amazement. "Why do you care so much about a stranger?" Martha thought about the question. "My husband used to say that kindness does not cost anything, but it is worth everything. I guess I believe that." "Tell me about your husband," Lirelei said softly. Martha smiled. "His name was Bill. He fixed machines for a living. We had a small farm on Earth, and he could repair anything that broke. He died 5 years ago from a sickness." "I am sorry for your loss," Lirelei said. He sounds like a good man. He was the best, Martha agreed. He taught me that helping others is what makes life worth living. Lirelai was quiet for a moment. Then she began to speak about her own life. I come from a world far from here. My people are called the Draknari. We once flew among the stars, building great cities on many worlds. What happened to them? Martha asked. War, Lirelai said simply. Many years ago, other species attacked our worlds. They were afraid of us because we were different, because we were strong. My people fought back, but the cost was too high. We lost so much that we decided to leave. Martha listened carefully. She had heard stories about the dark. Years when entire species disappeared from known space. She had never imagined that some of them might still be alive somewhere. Where did you go? Martha asked. To the far edge of the galaxy, Lirelai replied. We found worlds where no one else lived. We built new homes and tried to forget the pain of what we lost. Then how did you end up here? Lirelai's expression grew sad. I was exploring near the border of our space when human ships found me. I was curious about your species. I had heard that humans were different from the others who hurt us long ago. I wanted to see if it was true. But they captured you instead. Martha said, Yes, I was foolish to get so close to their ships. When I woke up, I was here. The humans who caught me do not know I can think and speak. They believe I am just an animal. Martha felt angry. The scientists she worked with seemed so smart and kind. How could they not see that Lirelai was intelligent? Have you tried talking to them? Martha asked. Lirelai shook her head. Why would I? They put chains on me and stuck needles in my skin to take samples. They treat me like a thing to be studied. If they knew I could speak, they might do worse things to learn my secrets. Martha understood. She had seen how some humans treated animals. Even good people sometimes forgot that other beings had feelings too. Over the next few weeks, Martha visited Lirelai every night. She brought food, medicine, and most importantly, friendship. Lirelai began teaching Martha words in the Draknari language. Martha practiced the strange sounds while she worked during the day. Lirelai also showed Martha exercises that helped with the pain in her old joints. The dragon knew ancient healing techniques that her people had used for thousands of years. Martha's arthritis began to feel better for the first time in months. Your people sound amazing, Martha said one night. I wish I could meet them. Perhaps you will someday, Lirelai replied. If I ever see my home again, you would be welcome. There, my people honor those who show courage and kindness. Martha laughed. I am not brave. I am just an old cleaning lady. You are wrong, Lirelai said firmly. You risk your job and your safety to help a stranger. You give your own food and money to someone who can never repay you. That is the truest form of courage. Martha felt her cheeks grow warm. She was not used to such praise. Their conversations were not always serious. Lirelai had a good sense of humor, and she enjoyed hearing about Martha's life. She laughed when Martha told stories about her grandchildren, who lived on a colony world too far away to visit. Human children sound delightful, Lirelai said. Draknari young are very serious. They must learn many important things before they can fly on their own. Do you have children? Martha asked. Lirelai was quiet for a long time. I have family, she said finally. They must be very worried about me. Martha noticed that Lirelai never gave details about her family. She seemed sad whenever the topic came up, so Martha learned not to push, but Martha began to worry about other things. She noticed more scientists coming to the restricted wing during the day. Dr. Helen Morrison, the lead researcher, was spending more time in meetings with important-looking people. Martha overheard conversations that made her nervous. Words like full examination and tissue analysis, an unprecedented opportunity. The scientists were getting excited about something, and Martha was afraid it involved Lirelei. One night, Martha arrived to find Lirelei looking more worried than usual. "Something is wrong," the dragon said. "Today, many humans came to look at me. They spoke in voices too quiet for me to hear, but their body language was ... aggressive." Martha's heart sank. She had been afraid this day would come. "They are planning something," she said. "I have heard them talking about special tests." Lirelei nodded grimly. "My people have stories about what happens when other species want to study us. It does not end well." Martha felt a cold fear in her stomach. She had grown to care deeply about Lirelei. The dragon was not just an alien creature anymore. She was a friend. "We have to do something," Martha said. "What can we do?" Lirelei asked. "I am chained, and you are just one human." Martha looked at her friend, seeing the fear in those intelligent eyes. An idea began to form in her mind. It was dangerous and probably impossible, but she could not stand by and let harm come to Lirelei. "Maybe I am just one human," Martha said, "but I know this station better than anyone. And sometimes one person is enough." Martha spent the next day watching and planning. She paid attention to things she had never noticed before. Security guards changed shifts at exactly 6 in the morning and 6 at night. The cameras in the hallways moved in patterns, leaving blind spots for exactly 30 seconds every few minutes. She had been invisible to most people for 3 years. Nobody questioned where the cleaning lady went or what she was doing. That invisibility would now be her greatest weapon. During her lunch break, Martha went to the old storage bays on the lower level. The station kept broken equipment there, waiting for repair or disposal. She found what she was looking for in Bay 7. 3 old shuttles that nobody used anymore. Martha had watched her husband Bill fix machines for 30 years. She had learned more than she realized. 2 of the shuttles were too damaged, but the third one might work. Its engine was old but intact. The fuel tank was empty, but that could be fixed. She spent her afternoon cleaning shift gathering supplies. A fuel canister from the maintenance closet, tools from the repair shop, emergency rations from the supply room. Nobody noticed a cleaning lady taking things. They never did. That evening, Martha went to see Lirelei earlier than usual. The dragon was lying still, but her eyes were alert and worried. "Tomorrow morning they are going to move me," Lirelei said quietly. "I heard the guards talking. They are taking me to a different room for something they call deep tissue analysis." Martha felt sick. She knew what that meant. The scientists were going to cut into Lirelei to study her from the inside. They still did not know she was intelligent. "No," Martha said firmly. "That is not going to happen." She explained her plan to Lirelei. The dragon listened carefully, her eyes growing wider with each detail. "Martha," Lirelei said when she finished, "this is too dangerous. If they catch you helping me escape, they will put you in prison, maybe for the rest of your life. Then, we better not get caught," Martha replied. "But even if we reach the old shuttle, I am too weak to fly it properly. And you do not know how to pilot a spacecraft." Martha smiled. "Bill always said I was a fast learner. Besides, how hard can it be?" Lirelei stared at her. "You are serious about this?" "Dead serious." The dragon was quiet for a long minute. "Why? Would you risk so much for me?" Martha thought about all the reasons. Because Lirelei was her friend. Because no thinking being deserved to be treated like a lab animal. Because it was the right thing to do. Because that is what friends do. She said simply. At 2 in the morning, Martha put her plan into action. She disabled the security camera in the restricted wing by spraying cleaning solution on its lens. To anyone watching, it would look like an accident. She used her keycard to enter Lirelei's room. The dragon was ready, having stayed awake all night. "The chains," Martha said. looking at the thick metal links that held Lirelei to the floor. "I can break them," Lirelei said, "but the noise will bring the guards." Martha had thought of that too. She pulled out a small device from her cart, a sonic screwdriver that maintenance used to remove bolts. She had borrowed it earlier, working. Quickly, Martha loosened the bolts that held the chains to the floor. It took 20 minutes, but finally the last bolt came free. Lirelei stood up for the first time in months. She was bigger than Martha had realized, but she moved carefully and quietly. "Can you walk?" Martha whispered. "I can manage," Lirelei replied, though Martha could see the effort it took. They made their way through the service corridors that Martha knew so well. These passages were used by maintenance workers and were rarely watched by security. Martha had memorized every turn, every ladder, every shortcut. The hardest part was getting to the lower level without being seen. They had to pass through two main hallways where people might notice a dragon following a cleaning lady. Martha timed their movement perfectly. During the guard shift change, when the cameras rotated away, she and Lirelei ran across the open spaces. Lirelei's claws clicked on the metal floor, but the station's ventilation system covered the sound dot. It took an hour to reach Storage Bay 7. Martha's heart was pounding, but they had made it without being discovered. The old shuttle looked even worse than Martha remembered. It was small, barely big enough for two people. Paint was peeling off its sides, and one of the windows was cracked. "Are you sure this will fly?" Lirelei asked doubtfully. "It has to," Martha replied. She had studied the shuttle's manual on her tablet during breaks. The basic controls were not too different from the farming equipment she had driven back on Earth. At least, she hoped they were not. Martha connected the fuel canister and checked the engine. Everything seemed to be working. She loaded the emergency supplies she had gathered. "Martha," Lirelei said quietly, "come with me." Martha looked at her friend. The dragon's eyes were bright with hope and fear. "I cannot," Martha said. "I am too old for adventures in space, and someone needs to stay here to cover your escape. My people will welcome you. You have shown more honor than most beings I have known. You would be treated as family." Martha felt her eyes fill with tears. The offer was tempting. She was lonely, on the station, with no real friends except Lirelei. But she knew her limitations. "I belong here," she said. "This is my home, even if it is not perfect." Lirelei nodded sadly. She reached into a small pouch on her neck that Martha had never noticed before. From it, she pulled a pendant made of some kind of crystal. It was beautiful, carved with symbols that seemed to glow with their own light. "Take this," Lirelei said, placing it in Martha's hands. "It will identify you to any Draknari you might meet. More than that, it will tell them that you are someone who can be trusted completely." Martha held the pendant carefully. It was warm to the touch and seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. "Thank you," Martha whispered. They climbed into the shuttle. Martha took the pilot's seat and began the startup sequence she had memorized. Lights flickered on, and the engine made a low humming sound. "The bay doors," Lirelei said. "How do we open them?" Martha had already thought of that. She pulled out her tablet and accessed the station's maintenance system. As head custodian, she had authorization to open storage bays for equipment transfers. Massive doors began to slide apart, revealing the star-filled darkness of space beyond. "Here we go," Martha said, gripping the controls. The shuttle lifted off smoothly. Martha was surprised at how easy it was to fly. The controls responded to her touch, and soon they were moving through the open bay doors into space. Alarms began to sound throughout the station. Red lights flashed in the corridors as security teams scrambled to respond to the breach. Martha piloted the shuttle away from the station as fast as she dared. The old engine was working hard, but it was holding. "Together. There," Lirelei said, pointing to a cluster of stars ahead. That direction will take me toward my home. Martha adjusted their course. Behind them, she could see lights moving around the station as security ships began to launch. They are following us, Martha said. Not for long, Lirelei replied. She moved to the communication console. May I? Martha nodded. Lirelei's claws moved over the controls with surprising skill. She sent out a signal in a language Martha did not recognize. What did you do? Martha asked. I called for help. Lirelei said simply. At first, nothing happened. Then space around them began to shimmer. Ships appeared out of nowhere, as if they had been invisible. They were beautiful vessels, sleek and silver like Lirelei's scales. My people have been watching, Lirelei explained. They have been looking for me. The security ships from the station stopped their pursuit immediately. They were badly outnumbered by the newcomers. One of the Draknari ships moved alongside their shuttle. A docking tube extended from its side. This is where we say goodbye, Lirelei said. Martha felt her heart breaking. She had known this moment would come, but it was still hard. They hugged goodbye at the airlock. Lirelei was careful not to hurt Martha with her claws. I will never forget your kindness, the dragon sighed. You have given me back my freedom and my hope. You gave me something too, Martha replied. You reminded me that friendship can happen anywhere, with anyone. Lirelei stepped through the airlock onto her people's ship. Martha watched through the window as the dragon was surrounded by others of her kind. They seemed excited and relieved to have her back. The docking tube retracted, and the Draknari ships began to fade from view. Within minutes, Martha was alone in space, sitting in an old shuttle with a dead engine. But she was not worried. The station's security ships were already moving toward her. She would be rescued, probably arrested, and definitely in trouble. As the security team brought her aboard their ship, Martha smiled. It had been worth it. She had saved her friend, and that was all that mattered. The pendant Lirelei had given her was hidden in her pocket, warm against her leg. Somehow, Martha knew this was not the end of their story. 3 months had passed since Martha's trial. The judges had been surprisingly kind to her. Many people spoke up for her character, including Dr. Morrison, who admitted that the research team should have realized their specimen was intelligent. Instead of prison, Martha received community service on New Haven Station, a civilian outpost that helped refugees and travelers. It was smaller than Zenith Research Station, but friendlier. Martha found herself doing the same work she had always done, cleaning, organizing, and helping where she could. She missed Lirelei terribly. Sometimes Martha would touch the pendant hidden under her shirt and wonder if her friend had made it home safely. She hoped the dragon was flying free among the stars. New Haven Station was buzzing with excitement on this particular morning. The news feeds were full of stories about a massive fleet of unknown ships that had appeared at the edge of the solar system. Military analysts were calling it the largest alien presence ever detected in human space. Martha paid little attention to the political news. She had work to do. The refugee quarters needed cleaning, and there were new arrivals every day who needed help settling in. She was mopping the floor in the main corridor when she noticed people stopping and staring. Conversations became whispers. Children pointed at something behind her. Martha turned around and nearly dropped her mop. Walking toward her were 3 of the most magnificent beings she had ever seen. They looked like Lirelei, but larger and more elegant. Their scales shimmered in colors Martha had never seen before: deep gold, brilliant silver, and rich emerald green. The tallest of the 3 had scales of crimson and gold. He wore what looked like armor made of the same crystal material as Martha's pendant. Behind him walked 2 others, both carrying themselves with obvious dignity and power. The entire corridor had gone silent. Everyone was staring at the aliens as they approached. The golden-scaled alien stopped directly in front of Martha. He was at least 8 feet tall, and his presence filled the hallway. When he spoke, his voice was deep and commanding. "Are you the human called Martha Collins?" Martha nodded, suddenly aware that her cleaning uniform was old and stained. She felt very small standing before this impressive being. "I am Prince Corvain, first son of the Draknari Empire," the alien continued. "I have traveled far to find you." The whispers in the corridor grew louder. Martha heard someone say, "Empire" and "Draknari" in shocked tones. She had no idea what was happening. "The one you knew as Lirelei," Prince Corvain said, his eyes fixed on Martha's face. "She has told us of your kindness, your courage, and your sacrifice." Martha felt confused. "Lirelei is safe? She made it home?" "She did indeed," the prince replied. "But there is something you must know about her. Something she could not tell you while she was imprisoned." Prince Corvain stepped closer. His voice became softer, but everyone in the corridor could still hear him clearly. "The being you knew as Lirelei is not simply one of my people," he said. "She is Empress Velthara, supreme ruler of the Draknari Empire. She is my mother, and the most powerful being in our part of the galaxy." Martha felt her knees go weak. The cleaning lady who worked beside her grabbed her arm to steady her. "My mother?" Martha whispered. "But she was chained up like an animal." "Yes," Prince Corvain said, and for the first time his voice showed anger. "The most revered being in our empire was treated like a specimen by your scientists. She was alone, hurt, and hopeless." Martha remembered Lirelei eating her sandwich so carefully, grateful for such simple kindness. She thought about the chains around her friend's legs and the dirty bandages on her wounds. "She never told me," Martha said softly. "She could not," Prince Corvain explained. "If her captors had known who she was, they might have tried to use her against our people. It was safer to remain silent." "But she told you," another voice said. Martha looked up to see that one of the other Draknari had stepped forward. This one had silver scales and kind eyes. "I am General Thane," the silver-scaled Draknari said. "The Empress has spoken of little else since her return. She says that in all her centuries of life, through war and peace, triumph and tragedy, she has never encountered such pure kindness from a stranger." Martha shook her head. "I did not do anything special. Anyone would have helped." "No," Prince Corvain said firmly. "That is not true. The Empress was held on that station for 6 months. Hundreds of people saw her every day. Scientists, guards, maintenance workers, administrators. Not one of them recognized her intelligence or showed her compassion. Except you," General Thane added. "You saw a suffering being and chose to help, even though it could cost you everything." Martha looked around the corridor. Everyone was listening with amazement. She saw Dr. Peterson from New Haven's Medical Bay, Captain Rodriguez from Security, and dozens of refugees and workers she knew by name. "The Empress has sent us with an invitation," Prince Corvain continued. "She wishes you to come to our homeworld as an honored guest. She wants to thank you properly for what you did." Martha felt overwhelmed. "I cannot leave my work here. These people need me." "Your work is important," General Thane agreed. "But the Empress has a proposal that might interest you." The third Draknari stepped forward for the first time. This one was smaller than the others, with emerald green scales that sparkled like jewels. "I am Ambassador Neres," she said. "I handle diplomatic relations for our empire. The Empress wishes to offer you a position as the first human Draknari cultural ambassador." Martha stared at her. "I do not understand." "Your act of kindness has changed everything," Ambassador Neres explained. "For 200 years, our people have hidden from the galaxy. We believed that other species had become cruel and selfish. We thought honor and compassion were extinct. But you proved us wrong, Prince Corvain added. If one human could show such kindness to a stranger, perhaps there is hope for the galaxy after all. Ambassador Nerys continued. The Empress has decided that the Draknari will rejoin galactic society. We will share our technology and knowledge with other species again. But she has one condition. What condition? Martha asked. That the galaxy recognize what she calls the Martha Principle, the ambassador said. The idea that the true measure of any civilization is how it treats the vulnerable and forgotten. Martha felt dizzy. All of this because she had helped an injured being who reminded her of a hurt animal. The position would allow you to travel between worlds, Prince Corvain said. You would help establish programs to protect beings who are overlooked or mistreated. You would have the resources and authority to make real change. Martha thought about all the refugees on New Haven Station. She thought about beings like Lirelei, who might be suffering in laboratories or prisons across the galaxy. She thought about her husband Bill, who always said that helping others was the most important thing anyone could do. Would I still be able to do my regular work? Martha asked. Cleaning and helping people with daily problems? The three Draknari looked at each other. Prince Corvain smiled, showing sharp but somehow friendly teeth. The Empress specifically requested that you keep doing exactly what you have always done, he said. She believes that the most important help often comes from the most ordinary people. Martha looked around the corridor again. Captain Rodriguez gave her an encouraging nod. Dr. Peterson was smiling with tears in her eyes. Even the children were, watching with excitement. Can I think about it? Martha asked. Of course, Ambassador Nerys said. But the Empress hopes you will consider visiting our homeworld first. She very much wants to see her friend again. Friend, even as an Empress. Lirelei still considered Martha her friend. Yes, Martha said finally. I would like to see her again too. Prince Corvain bowed deeply, followed by the other two Draknari. The gesture was formal, but full of respect. The Empress will be very pleased, he said. Our ship is waiting to take you home. The Galactic Council Chamber had never seen anything like this before. Representatives from 47 different species filled the Great Hall. They had come from across the galaxy to witness something unprecedented, the return of the Draknari. Empire. Martha sat in a place of honor beside the Draknari delegation. She wore a simple blue dress that Ambassador Nerys had given her, but around her neck was Lirelei's pendant. Now glowing brightly for all to see. The chamber fell silent as Empress Balthara entered. Martha barely recognized her friend. Gone were the chains and dirty bandages. The Empress moved with grace and power, her scales shimmering like liquid starlight. She was magnificent, but when their eyes met, Martha saw the same kind intelligence she had first noticed in that dark laboratory. The Empress approached the speaking platform at the center of the chamber. When she spoke, her voice carried easily to every corner of the great hall. Representatives of the Galactic Council, she began. I am Empress Balthara of the Draknari Empire. You have not heard from my people for 200 years. Today, I will tell you why we left and why we have chosen to return. Martha watched as the alien representatives leaned forward in their seats. Some looked excited, others worried. Everyone wanted to hear what the Empress had to say. My people withdrew from galactic society because we lost faith, the Empress continued. We had seen too much cruelty, too much selfishness. Wars were fought over resources while the weak suffered. The strong took what they wanted and ignored the cries of those who could not defend themselves. The chamber was completely quiet. Martha could hear her own heartbeat. We decided that the galaxy had become a place where only power mattered, where kindness was seen as weakness. So we left to find peace among ourselves, away from a universe that had forgotten how to care. The Empress turned to look directly at Martha. Then this human, Martha Collins, showed us that we were wrong. A murmur went through the chamber. Martha felt hundreds of eyes looking at her. She wanted to hide, but she forced herself to sit up straight. 6 months ago, I was captured. While exploring near-human space, the Empress said, I was taken to a research station and treated as a laboratory specimen. I was chained, studied, and prepared for procedures that would have killed me. Their representatives began talking among themselves. Martha heard words of shock and anger from different species. But one person saw me as more than an animal, the Empress continued, her voice growing stronger. Martha Collins was a cleaning lady at that station. She had no power, no authority, no wealth. She gained nothing by helping me and risked everything to do so. The Empress described how Martha had cared for her wounds, brought her food, and eventually freed her from captivity. She told them about the friendship that had grown between them and about Martha's courage in helping her escape. This human did not know who I was, the Empress said. She did not help me because I was important or powerful. She helped me because I was suffering, and that was enough. Martha remembered those nights in the laboratory, talking quietly with a friend while cleaning her wounds. It had seemed so simple then. Now, looking around the great chamber, she realized how much those small acts had meant. Martha Collins represents what my people had forgotten existed, the Empress continued. She showed us that there are still beings in this galaxy who choose kindness over convenience, courage over comfort. She proved that the values we thought were lost still live in the hearts of ordinary people. The Empress raised her voice so that it filled every corner of the chamber. That is why the Draknari Empire chooses to rejoin galactic society. Not because the galaxy has changed, but because we have been reminded that good people still exist within it. Loud discussions broke out among the representatives. Some were excited about the return of the Draknari and their advanced technology. Others seemed worried about sharing power with such a strong empire. The Empress waited for quiet, then continued. We offer our knowledge freely, our medical advances, our clean energy systems, our agricultural techniques. We will help build hospitals, schools, and research centers throughout the galaxy. But, she said, and her voice became firm, we have one condition. The chamber fell silent again. The Galactic Council must adopt what we call the Martha Principle, the Empress announced. Every member species must agree to protect those who cannot protect themselves. Laws must be passed to ensure that no sentient being is treated as property or subjected to experiments without consent. She gestured toward Martha. This principle is named for the human who reminded us that true civilization is measured not by military strength or technological advancement, but by how we treat the most vulnerable among us. The debate that followed lasted for hours. Some representatives worried about the cost of such programs. Others questioned whether the Draknari could be trusted after so many years of isolation. But Martha noticed something interesting. As the debate continued, more and more representatives began supporting the Martha Principle. They shared stories of their own people who had been helped by simple acts of kindness. They talked about the importance of protecting the weak and the forgotten. Finally, the vote was called. One by one, each species cast their decision. When the count was finished, the Martha Principle had passed by an overwhelming majority. Empress smiled, the first time Martha had seen her do so since their reunion. The Draknari Empire is honored to rejoin the galactic community, she said. After the ceremony, Martha found herself surrounded by reporters and diplomats. Everyone wanted to know about the human who had changed galactic history. But Martha was more interested in the private conversation she had with her friend. I still cannot believe you are really an empress, Martha said as they walked in the Empress's private garden. "And I still cannot believe you are really just a cleaning lady," Veilthara replied with amusement. "The way you planned and executed my escape showed remarkable intelligence and courage." "Anyone would have done the same thing," Martha insisted. "No, dear friend," the Empress said gently. "That is exactly the point. Not everyone would have done what you did. That is what makes your actions so special." They offered Martha a beautiful home on the Draknari homeworld and a position overseeing cultural exchange programs. But Martha had a different idea. "I want to go back to my work," she said. "Cleaning stations, helping refugees, talking to people who feel forgotten. But now I want to do it with official authority to make changes when I find problems." The Empress understood immediately. "You want to continue being yourself, but with the power to help more people." "Exactly," Martha said. So Martha returned to New Haven Station, but now she wore a uniform that carried the symbols of both the human colonial administration and the Draknari Empire. She still cleaned floors and emptied trash cans, but she also had the authority to investigate complaints, protect the vulnerable, and ensure that everyone was treated with dignity. The Martha Principle became more than just a law. It became a movement that spread across the galaxy. People began paying attention to those who had been invisible before. Cleaning staff, service workers, refugees, and others who had been overlooked suddenly found their voices being heard. Martha received reports from dozens of worlds about programs started in her name. Shelters for displaced persons, medical care for the poor, education for children who had been forgotten. Each report made her smile and think of her husband Bill, who had always said that helping others was the most important work anyone could do. On quiet nights, when her work was done, Martha would touch the pendant that Veilthara had given her. It still glowed softly, reminding her of their friendship and the chain of events that had started with a simple decision to help someone in need. The galaxy had learned an important lesson through Martha's story. Sometimes the most powerful changes come not from grand gestures by important people, but from ordinary individuals who choose to be kind when it would be easier to look away. Every year on the anniversary of Martha's first meeting with Veilthara, the Draknari Empire celebrated the Day of the Gentle Hand. It was a time to remember that heroism comes in many forms, and that sometimes the greatest victories are won not through strength or intelligence, but through simple human compassion. Martha Collins, the humble cleaning lady who helped a dragon, had reminded an entire galaxy what it meant to be truly civilized. And in doing so, she had proven that anyone, no matter how ordinary they might seem, has the power to change the universe through acts of kindness. The story of Martha and Veilthara became legend, told on countless worlds to countless children. It reminded everyone that in a galaxy full of advanced technology and powerful empires, the most important force of all was still the simple choice to care about others. And somewhere in the vast reaches of space, an old woman in a custodian's uniform continued her work, making the galaxy a little bit better, one small act of kindness at a time.